Okay, so here we have the principle of work and energy. So this is what comes next after we learn from work. So now that we know what work is, how we can find, how every force can be doing work, this is where we get the principle of work and energy. So notice that before, right, when we have done summation of forces, right, if we do summation of forces, we can of course find a resultant force in our particle if we have forces acting in several directions. So we know, right, that in this case, notice the resultant force is just summation of forces. Notice here the force in the tangential direction. Let's say this is moving in a curve, right? The force occurring in the tangential direction. This will be a normal tangential kind of thing. It's equals to mass times acceleration in the tangential direction, where we know that acceleration in the tangential direction is equals to, or can be found using the equation v dv over ds. If we do this and we start substituting and integrating, we're gonna end up with this principle right here. So I'm not gonna go too much into detail as to how to find it. You guys have the derivation right here. It's also in your notes, or you guys can pause the video and follow along to see what we're doing, how we are substituting AT into this equation and then integrating. But the important thing here is that we end up with this equation right here, where we have that the kinetic energy, that's T1 is representing the kinetic energy, where kinetic energy is equals to 1/2 mass times velocity at that moment square. So if you have the kinetic energy at the beginning plus the sum of work done from state 1 to 2, that should equal the kinetic energy at state 2. You can also, if you have several objects or several particles or several parameters that deal with kinetic energy, then we can do this one. The summation of kinetic energies at state 1, because it can be multiple objects, plus the summation of work equals to kinetic energy 2. So in this case, what work it's doing two things. It's either dissipating energy. So if it's dissipating energy, that means that T1 will be greater than T2, because the energy that it had at the beginning, was lost as a form of work. So a form of heat, a form of friction, things like that. Or the works, weights, if you're going down, weight can add energy to it, or it can be subtracting. Same thing if you have like a spring. So in the case when work does add up energy to the system, then we'll have that T1 is less than T2. So we were moving at one velocity, maybe we got like a spring that helped us out, and now our velocity after is higher, and we ended up with a higher kinetic energy at the end. So that's how they relate. So whatever energy you have at the beginning, you're gonna add or subtract work from it, and that will give us our kinetic energy at the end, right? This is the principle of work and energy. And this is where it comes handy. Whenever we have problems, as we'll see right now, that deals with forces, we can relate, in this situation, we can relate the forces, the velocities, and the displacements as well, without having to rely on the acceleration. On the previous problems, if we want to figure out the displacement or the velocity, right, we have force equals mass times acceleration. So we have to solve for A, and then we have to use the kinematic equations to solve from A all the way to V, or from A all the way to S, or from A all the way to time, right? That's the process we saw in the previous problems. But on these ones, you will see that we can use already velocities, forces, and displacements all with this equation. So we can go straight from a force to velocity, or from a force to the displacement, just by using this principle. So it makes it kind of handy. It already handles finding some of these parameters without having to then go do the kinematic equations. Remember, for these kind of problems, you will do the kinetics first, and then probably the kinematics if you want to find, time, displacement, or velocity. But through the principle of work and energy, you can go straight from the kinetics all the way to the kinematics in one simple step. So let's do this problem. So we have a 3,500 pounds automobile shown here in the figure, traveling down the inclined road of 10 degrees at a speed of 20 feet per second. If the driver jams on the brakes, causing his wheels to lock, determine how far the tires skid on the road. The coefficient of kinetic friction between the wheels on the road is mu k equals to 0.5. So we have this information. Let's write down then everything that we have so that we can solve this problem. So once again, let's see, we have been given the weight, which is 3,500 pounds. That's not the mass, that's the weight. We see that the incline is about 10 degrees. We have a velocity of, at the beginning, of 20 feet per second. And then we have a coefficient of kinetic friction, which is 0.5. And here we're looking the final S. How much distance do we travel once you step on the brakes? So as we step on the brakes, I guess that's another information right here. So that's the initial velocity, and then the second velocity or final velocity will be 0, since we are braking, right? We're stepping on the brakes. So let's draw our free body diagram as usual. So we have here, I'm gonna draw the car like this. It's going down this road. Of course, this road is kind of exaggerated in its dimensions, but this is the theta, which is equal to 10 degrees. So if this is my car, let's see what forces we have acting. So always we have weight acting down, so this is mass times gravity. We have the normal force being perpendicular to the ground, so normal force. And then we have the friction acting, to slow down the car. So this is the force of friction in this direction. All right, so we can do this problem through summation of forces, right? You guys know the process. In this case, we will need to do some of that so that we can figure out the values. So let's write it like this, the angle. So this will be, we can say this is y, and we can say maybe in this direction is x, it's whatever, or the normal direction, whatever you wanna call it. So in this case, we'll do here. Notice once again we have 3 different forces, and let me write down then the equation that we need. So the equation that we satisfy is T1 plus the sum of work done from state 1 to 2 is equals to T2. This is the equation that we need to use to solve this problem. So we got 3 forces. We gotta figure out how much does each of those forces are contributing to the work, so that we can calculate this. But it should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so notice from here, we do know the weight, so that's given. Friction, we can find that out through the following. So force of friction, it's equals to mu k times the normal force. But I do not know the normal force, so I have to do some quick summation of forces to figure that one out. So doing summation of forces, let's say in the y direction, if I draw it like that, or the normal direction, whatever direction you want to call this, because we are not moving in this direction, we're only sliding in this direction, we can say that because there's no motion, there's no acceleration, the direction of forces in the y direction, the summation of it, it's equals to 0. So here we'll have then the normal force C minus some component of the gravity. Notice there's another component of gravity right here that is acting also in that direction. So that will be minus 3,500 times cosine of theta, where we have that this one right here, it's our theta. So let me erase it so you guys can see it. So it's this one right here. This is my angle theta. So this is the component of my weight that will be doing that. So this is my mass times gravity. So 3500 cosine of theta, where theta is 10 degrees. So when you plug this in and solve, you'll get that the normal force is equals to 3446.8 pounds. All right, so from this information, we can figure out then that the force of friction, if it multiplied times the coefficient of kinetic friction, is equals to 17 or 1,723.4 pounds. All right, so we have the forces. We know all the forces, so now let's apply the equation that we said before. So T1 plus the sum of work from 1 to 2 is equals to T2, where this is equals to 1/2 the mass. So that's 3,500 pounds divided by 32.2 feet per second square. Right? Mass times velocity square. It was going initially at 20 feet per second, all of that square. Plus, let's see the forces that are causing this to displace. And notice that here we'll have the component of the weights doing helping with the displacement, right? There's a component of the weight on it as well as friction. The normal force is not causing any displacement. So because we're only displacing in this direction, then there's the component of the weight that goes here. And notice because it's going in the positive direction, we're going to add that there. So this will be plus 3,500. This will be sine of the 10 degrees in pounds times how much it displaces. So times delta S, or just times, yeah, I'll keep it delta S so that you guys don't get confused with the things that I'm writing here. Yeah, so we have here the friction. So we have, because the friction is acting opposite to the direction, this will be the force of friction. So that's 1,723.4 pounds times the change in S as well. All right, so the only force acting there. And this is equals to, well, because our velocity at the end is 0, then my kinetic energy at the end must also be 0. So when you find out these numbers, we're looking for delta S. This will equals to 21,739.1 plus this is 607.77 times delta S minus 70 or 1723.4 delta S equals to 0. We can combine those with delta S and we'll get 21,739.1 equals to 11 or 1,015.63 delta S. So since we're looking for the delta S, or the final length or the total length, we'll find here that the distance it takes for the car to stop, if you divide this, should be 19.5 feet. So it will take the car about 19.5 or almost 20 feet for the car to come to a complete stop. Once again, you could have solved this problem using the kinematic equation. So if we would have done the summation of forces in the x direction as we have it right here, this would have been mass times A in the x direction. We can find those forces right there. With this, we find the acceleration in the x to be negative 10.3 feet per second square. And then using the kinematic equations, BA or BF equals to B naught squared plus 2 times a x times the change in distance, we would have been able to figure out the same distance. But notice I did all of that in one equation as opposed to use these two equations. So yeah, both methods are valid, but if you're asking for one specific method that you need to follow, be sure that you are doing that. You're following the method of equations of motions, right? This is the equations of motion, or this is the principle of work and energy. So make sure that you do the appropriate method according to the problem. All right, so that is it for this problem. I'll see you in the next one. Keep studying and good luck.